you can see, I have my Excel workbook open. And at the top of my workbook, I can see the name of my workbook, Book 1. Below that, I have different tabs. And each of these tabs contain ribbons, which can be customized according to your preferences. In the middle of the screen, I have my spreadsheet. And at the bottom left corner, I have my different worksheets. I can simply edit the name of my worksheet by double-clicking on the worksheet and typing, for example, test. I can also insert a new worksheet by going to the icon here and clicking on Insert Worksheet. And as you see now, a new worksheet is created. I can also move a worksheet simply by dragging and dropping an existing worksheet in between two other worksheets. And I can also hide an existing worksheet by right-clicking, going to Hide, and then my worksheet is not visible anymore. To unhide the worksheet, I simply right-click on any sheet and click on Unhide. Here I select the sheet I want to unhide. If I want to change the color of my sheet, so if I want to change this color, then I right-click on the sheet and I go to Tab Color and I change the color of my sheet. This can be very useful if you have many different sheets in Excel and you want to distinguish some sheets from each other, or you want to highlight certain important sheets. Let me now show you the different tabs in Excel. So the first tab is the File tab, tab in green on the left. If I go to Save, I can save my workbook. So I can save the workbook under a specific name. I can also choose Save As. In this case, I want to change the name of the workbook to Test. And I click Save. Yes, I want to replace the workbook. As you see now, all the worksheets within this workbook are saved under the workbook Test. If I want to reopen my workbook, I can go to Open and I select the workbook I just saved here. I click on Open and now my workbook has reopened. If I now go back to the File tab at the top left corner, then you see that there are some other options here. For example, Info will give you all the information about your workbook. And as you see, there is a possibility to protect your workbook. So here you can protect your workbook from being edited by certain users. You can protect your worksheet or the entire workbook structure so that users cannot create any new sheets. You can also grant access to certain people, which gives certain people access to edit or remove data while others can't. If I go to New in the File tab, then I can choose to create one of the Office templates. These are standard templates offered by Microsoft Excel that can be used to create, for example, a budget spreadsheet or a calendar spreadsheet. If I go to Options within the File tab, then I can change my user preferences for working with Excel. For example, I can go to Language and select the language in which I want to work. For example, if I want to change my language to Dutch, then I simply select Dutch and select Dutch as a default language. And all the user interface elements, buttons and tabs will be translated to Dutch. If I now go back to the File tab and I go to Print, then I can choose which selection I want to print. I can print my active sheet, which is the sheet that I have currently open. I can also print my entire workbook, which will print all the worksheets within my workbook, or I can print a certain selection or a certain range of cells. In the second tab, which is the Home tab, I can choose the cell formatting. I can choose my font type here. I can choose the alignment of my cells, number formatting, and I can also choose which style I want to give to my cells. We'll cover this part in section 4 of this course. On the second tab, which is the Insert tab, I can choose to insert a pivot table or a pivot chart. I can also choose to insert a normal table or a regular chart here. And there are some other options such as illustrations or spark lines. We will cover this within section 5, which is about creating charts with Excel, and section 7, which is about creating pivot charts and pivot tables. Within the third tab, which is the Page Layout tab, I can choose my page layout, so I can set certain margins on the left or the right. I can set a background. which I never really use, but you can change this if you want. Within the fourth tab, which is the Formulas tab, I can use certain formulas. We will cover the formulas within section 2 and section 3 of this course. There are two ways to insert formulas. So one way is to select your formula from the function library. Another way is to directly type it into your cell. Then we also have the Data tab. Here I can choose my data source. I can set a connection to a SQL server, for example, or I can choose to get data from a certain website. I can also choose to set a filter, and I can also remove duplicates and do some other things here. We will cover the filter and sorting section within section 6 of this course, which is about sorting and filtering. Within the Review tab, I can choose to correct my spelling. I can also add comments to certain cells, and I can protect my sheet the same way as I can protect it through the File tab in here. So this is also useful if you want to protect certain sheets or protect your whole workbook from being edited. Within the View tab, I can change my worksheet view. For example, I can add page breaks, or I can choose to remove grid lines here. Within Freeze Panes, I can choose to freeze certain rows or columns within my spreadsheet. This is very useful if you want to scroll down within your worksheet, but still want to see the first row or column of your spreadsheet. For example, if I want to freeze the top row, I can select Freeze Top Row. As you can see now, if I scroll down, the top row is still visible. Finally, within the Excel Add-ins tab, I can see all my Excel add-ins which I have installed.